The young women are ordered to lower their gaze in a display of complete humility. Strict protocols are established, forbidding the attendants from speaking or questioning the monarch's commands. The brown-haired woman is reminded that her duty is to remain by the emperor's side at all times. Clayton specifies the precise 3-step distance that must be maintained from his person. Lady Amelia listens stoically, her expression remaining entirely unreadable. Clayton A. Lacarso is introduced as a peerlessly beautiful and mighty young emperor whose features seem divinely crafted. While his legendary beauty and swordsmanship intimidate others, the ash-blonde Lady Amelia calmly offers to take his cloak. An internal voice wonders if the emperor has developed a peculiar desire for whatever the maid prepares.
Clayton decides to begin his work, and Amelia immediately presents him with an impossibly high stock of documents. Stunned by her terrifying efficiency, Clayton hilariously questions if his new maid is actually using telepathy.
He notes that while most people faint or lose their speech in his presence, Amelia remains completely unfazed. Clayton glares at the maid from his desk, mentally charging her with 3 cardinal sins. He deems her second sin to be the way she occasionally offends his refined sensibilities. Her most egregious offense, in his eyes, is her stubborn refusal to fall in love with him. Amelia remains oblivious to his dramatic internal monologue as she dutifully carries more paperwork. Clayton clears his throat to regain his composure and officially begins his review of the documents. He admits to himself that conquering this woman's heart is a more difficult quest than any military subjugation. Time passes in silence as the emperor works while his maid continues her tireless support. The narrative shifts back 1 month to the festive day of the royal coronation. Fireworks explode over the Grand Palace as the kingdom celebrates its new imperial majesty. The head chamberlain prepares to present a group of elite noble attendants to serve the throne. Clayton accepts the arrival of these refined scions, though he seems largely indifferent to their status. A black-haired noblewoman is overcome with emotion, stammering about the immense honor of serving him. The noble staff members quickly lose their composure, shouting enthusiastic praises and congratulations at the emperor. The group is completely mesmerized, unable to stop staring at the monarch's striking appearance. The chamberlain is appalled by their lack of decorum, but he knows Clayton usually tolerates such behavior. The new attendants continue to swoon and blush, their hearts racing in the emperor's presence. The crowd erupts in a piercing kia as the emperor grants them a brief, radiant smile. The head chamberlain sighs, realizing the monarch's usual leniency will once again allow the chaos to slide. Clayton's reputation for master-level swordsmanship adds to the aura of awe surrounding him. He wears a soft, knowing smirk as he moves through the adoring crowd. Clayton stops and inquires about a smaller group of servants standing quietly in the background. The chamberlain dismisses them as unimportant, explaining that introductions were omitted since the emperor wouldn't need them. Ignoring the snub, Clayton approaches the ash-blonde woman and stares directly at her. The chamberlain identifies her as Lady Amelia Valletta and asks if the two met previously in the north. Clayton waits for her response with an intense, expectant gaze. Amelia delivers a curt and absolute denial, claiming they have never met before. The head chamberlain's sharp instincts immediately scream that Amelia is hiding the truth. He observes the interaction closely, certain that the emperor has a hidden interest in Lady Amelia. The chamberlain suddenly reassigns Amelia to the emperor's office, prompting Lady Lucia to let out a sharp eek in despair. Lucia protests the sudden change in status, desperately arguing that the prestigious seat belonged to her. She lists the disgusting tasks she endured to earn the position, but the chamberlain refuses to overturn the decision. Amelia silences the drama with a stern rebuke, then sighs a weary at the insolence shown in the royal presence. Clayton blinks in surprise, caught off guard by Amelia's sudden and assertive display of authority. The emperor can only mutter a bewildered "huh?" as he processes his maid's protective outburst. The head chamberlain informs Amelia that her life now belongs to the palace with no personal time allowed. He makes it clear that she must be on constant standby for the emperor at all hours. Amelia accepts the demanding terms of her new life with a simple, stoic affirmation. The chamberlain instructs her to maintain strict communication regarding any problems that might arise. He delivers a final, chilling warning that everything she hears in the emperor's presence is a secret for life. The head chamberlain issues a final warning that Amelia's life and the safety of House Valletta depend on her absolute silence. Amelia's sharp, analytical gaze lingers on thoughts of Emperor Clayton's controversial history. A map details the emperor's former exile to the northern border for the crime of slaying a divine beast. The kingdom once roiled with fury over the perfect crown prince's fall from grace. For Amelia, the emperor's return to power feels more like an impending curse than a miracle. Noble families bankrupt themselves with lavish gifts to prove their loyalty to the new monarch. While battling swarms of demonic beasts, House Valletta lacked the coin for gifts, leading to a different kind of offering. The ash-blonde noblewoman was presented as a servant to settle the debts of her house.
Clayton personally selects the daughter of his former jailers to serve as his main maid. Amelia accepts her new role with a heavy sense of inevitability. A sharp sound echoes as the head chamberlain prepares to officially hand over Amelia's duties. Amelia recalls the Emperor's cold and strict warning from their very first meeting. Clayton's initial behavior toward her was marked by an obvious simmering intensity.
The Emperor looms regally as Amelia prepares for what she perceives as his impending retribution.
A heavy silence fills the room as the Emperor's emerald eyes lock onto his new maid. Amelia concludes with certainty that her appointment is merely a vessel for the monarch's revenge. A sudden, sharp realization breaks the concentration of the people within the imperial study. A frantic shout of "His Majesty" rings out as the Emperor's presence is noted. The Chamberlain is stunned to find the once lazy prince working with such terrifying diligence. The staff suggests the Emperor rest, but Clayton firmly states that the Empire never sleeps. Moved to tears by the monarch's unexpected dedication, the Chamberlain weeps with joy. The staff is bewildered by the total transformation of the Emperor's work ethic. Clayton sits at his desk, radiating a cold and powerful aura of authority.
The brown-haired Chamberlain offers to train Amelia later so the Emperor can work in peace.
Clayton dismisses the help, insisting that the matter be left entirely to him.
A wave of comic confusion washes over the maid and the monocle-wearing official.
The Emperor declares with chilling calm that he will instruct Amelia personally. An internal voice questions if the monarch is simply seeking an excuse to bully her. The Chamberlain fears the office orientation is just a front for imperial torment. Clayton's broad shoulders and regal stature dominate the golden light of the office. An intense, silent stare-down occurs between the monarch and his stoic, ash-blonde maid. The head chamberlain stares in a state of utter, dazed shock at the unfolding tension. On the night of his abdication, Clayton lay awake in his grand chambers, haunted by the past. The Emperor lets out a weary "ha" as he sits up, exhausted by the weight of his crown.
He reflects on his 5-year exile and the incident that cost him his reputation.
Images of monstrous beasts and bloody battlefields remind him of the price he paid for the throne. Despite the storm of duties awaiting him, the Emperor finds himself unable to sleep. Clayton is plagued by the memory of Amelia's resentful expression from earlier that day. He broods in the moonlight, trying to understand the source of his maid's coldness. He recalls the judgmental, shadowy eyes that have followed him since his fall from grace. The monarch stands amidst the weight of a kingdom that once looked at him with disdain. He remains troubled by his identity as the man who dared to kill a divine beast. A close-up of his eye reveals the sharp sting of the word contempt still etched in his mind. The world has changed, and now the people praise him as a God-favored hero. During his coronation, Clayton saw only longing and adoration in the eyes of his subjects. He reflects on the moment his crown was returned, signaling that everything was in its place. Amelia stands in the palace gardens, her presence a jarring contrast to the adoring crowds. The monarch ponders the deeper meaning behind his maid's unwavering and stoic resolve. Clayton wonders how she can look at him with such a unique and challenging expression. He is left with a nagging gut feeling that his new maid is anything but normal. Clayton sits up in bed in a cold sweat, his mind racing with the insulting possibility that his maid might actually hold him in contempt. He reflects on his own perfection as a God-made masterpiece and swordmaster, finding it impossible that anyone could look down on his masculine virtues. The Emperor is pulled from his internal monologue when he is suddenly addressed within the quiet of his office. Amelia stands gracefully among a background of blooming flowers and asks if she may pose a single question to her monarch. An internal voice screams in shock at the breach of etiquette, noting that a subject must never speak unless the Emperor addresses them first. The head chamberlain is horrified, his monocle nearly falling as he panics over the maid's bold behavior in the royal presence. He suspects Amelia is showing off her stubborn northern attitude as she flatly denies any intentional disrespect toward the throne. While the official considers fleeing the room to escape the tension, the Emperor wonders exactly what question his maid is about to ask. Amelia feels the Emperor's prickly gaze boring into her, but maintains a small, knowing smile as she waits for his response. She acknowledges the source of the friction, noting her identity as a noble of the fierce and often misunderstood North. Amelia reflects on how capital nobles despise Northerners as savages, further complicating her relationship with the new administration. She realizes that her presence likely triggers the Emperor's painful memories of his 5-year exile spent in her family's northern lands. She remains determined to learn the office layout properly, weighing whether she should ask the Emperor or the Chamberlain for training. The ash-blonde maid dreads the thought of appearing incompetent if she cannot locate the necessary supplies for her duties. She hopes that if she performs her tasks with absolute excellence, she can eventually earn the monarch's respect.
Amelia's ultimate goal is to slowly dissolve the Emperor's deep-seated resentment toward the people of the North.
Her eyes are filled with a quiet, unwavering resolve to succeed in her new role, despite the heavy atmosphere. Clayton stares back at her with an intense, expectant look in his emerald eyes, waiting for her to proceed. The Emperor grants her permission to speak, and Amelia points out that he only returned to the palace yesterday, after a long absence. Sensing she is questioning his competence, Clayton becomes defensive and asks if she doubts his ability to know his own office. Amelia bows her head slightly, absorbing the monarch's sharp and defensive tone without losing her composure. Clayton begins to lecture her on the desk's organization, detailing where the stationery, ink, and pens are precisely located. He indicates that the items for official decrees are kept on the far left of the workspace for easy access. A drawer opens with a quick sliding rattle as he explains that the contents are sorted strictly by the density of their color. Amelia steps forward to verify the arrangement, and the Emperor is stunned that she would bother to double-check his word. Clayton imagines her reacting with adoring praise for his attention to trivial details, but the fantasy remains a mere thought. He realizes with a drop in his stomach that her stoic face shows none of the swooning admiration he secretly expected. Amelia asks about the bottom left compartment, and the Emperor informs her with a scowl that it is merely empty space. He continues the tour, pointing out territorial documents, original contracts, and a box kept for miscellaneous needs. With a sharp final click, Amelia closes a drawer and concludes that his instructions were perfectly accurate. She is inwardly impressed that, despite his long absence, the Emperor seems to have mastered every corner of his new study. Clayton catches himself talking at length and covers his mouth, feeling a sudden wave of self-consciousness about his talkativeness. Amelia confirms the drawer is empty and suggests the systematic chamberlain likely maintained the old Emperor's layout to assist the new monarch. The Emperor lets out a weary sigh, finding her logical compliment more annoying than a direct insult to his pride. He commands her to stop for the day and go back to rest, hoping to end the exhausting interaction. Amelia agrees but states she will report her departure to the head chamberlain as part of her official duties. Clayton snaps at her to just leave without involving the official, but Amelia refuses to yield to his dismissal. She reminds him of her obligation to report his status and insists she cannot stop the chamberlain from checking on a resting emperor. The Emperor loses his temper, shouting for her to stay and search the room herself since she stubbornly refuses to rest. Amelia remains calm, explaining she needs proper education to ensure she never touches a forbidden royal item in the study. Clayton is left speechless by her ironclad logic, realizing she hasn't left him a single opening to win the argument. He clenches his fist in silent frustration, unable to refute a single word of her perfectly reasonable and professional explanation. He is forced to admit that she works exceptionally well, is prudent, and remains in complete control of her emotions. Despite his irritation, the Emperor's subjective opinion is that her conduct and etiquette are absolutely flawless and neat. He watches her with a lingering, brooding gaze that reveals his growing obsession with her unwavering resolve. An internal voice screams in exasperation that this woman is the most bothersome person he has ever had to manage. Clayton finally relents, telling Amelia she may touch everything in the office except for his personal desk. Surrounded by a floral aura of grace, Amelia thanks Her Majesty for the clear and direct instruction. The monarch notes that while her voice is strangely delicate, her tone remains unnervingly calm and composed. He observes her with a mix of awe and frustration, comparing her swift and cautious movements to those of a squirrel. The Emperor wonders if General Fairy is a more fitting nickname for his mysterious and disciplined maid. As she works in complete silence, the monarch observes that she moves without making even the slightest sound. He ponders if her unnatural stealth comes from growing up in northern forests where demonic beasts roam. Clayton's intense gaze narrows as he focuses on the harsh reputation of the northern lands. He reflects on the north as a barren and treacherous territory infested with terrifying monsters. His mind wanders back to the grim memories of his exile during his time as the crown prince. He recalls the rugged and weathered people of the north surviving amidst a harsh, snowy landscape. He remembers their rough lifestyle and subdued conduct, noting that Amelia matches his memories without a single error. The monarch concludes that she is the quintessential example of a stoic northern woman. A series of sharp, rhythmic clicks echo through the study as Amelia systematically organizes the various items. Clayton notes her unwavering focus, realizing she is working so faithfully that she seems to have forgotten his presence. His ego is visibly bruised by the fact that she is prioritizing miscellaneous junk over admiring his royal presence. He recalls how social gatherings would normally descend into chaotic displays of affection at his mere sight. The Emperor imagines women screaming in absolute adoration as he stands with effortless, sparkling grace. His memory depicts women swooning and falling over like dominoes just to catch a glimpse of him.
A man is shown sobbing with overwhelming emotion while the emperor notes that even men scream in his wake.
He views himself as a sun so blinding that others cannot look away despite the intensity of his light. Despite this perceived perfection, he remains deeply baffled by his maid's unwavering and cold stoicism. Clayton begins to wonder if she is somehow broken for not reacting to his legendary masculine charms. He reconsidered his assessment, suspecting there must be a more logical reason for her unique attitude. The monarch considers if she witnessed his past crimes in Valletta, making her shudder at his very sight. He recalls meeting her father and brothers, but remains certain he never faced Amelia herself during his exile. A sudden gasp escapes him as a startling and narcissistic theory crosses his mind.
He wonders if she could have caught a glimpse of him at a certain old stream in the north.
A memory of the stream near his secluded exile hut begins to surface as the water splashes quietly. He recalls being swarmed by local women who would peek at him while he bathed, wondering if Amelia was among them. He quickly dismisses the idea, certain that she was not part of the group hiding by the stream. The monarch reasons that no woman could maintain such an indifferent face after seeing his supposedly perfect nude form. He questions if she hates him based on rumors of his hooligan past, feeling wronged because he still protected the land. Amelia interrupts his internal monologue to address him, catching the startled emperor completely off guard. She informs him that her assessment is finished, crediting the Chamberlain's systematic arrangement for her quick understanding. Surrounded by an aura of grace, the ash-blonde maid stands before her ruler with unwavering poise. Clayton looks at her with an intense, expectant look, waiting for whatever point she is about to make next. She points out the lack of sword maintenance tools and states she will instruct the staff to acquire some immediately. The emperor is taken aback by her thoroughness, wondering what kind of woman his new maid truly is. He admits her attention to detail is terrifyingly perfect, as she noticed precisely what was missing from his desk. Amelia's calm and direct gaze leaves the emperor feeling strangely self-conscious. His heart pounds as he struggles to comprehend how she can say such embarrassing things with such a calm tone. Overwhelmed by the interaction, Clayton dismisses her and announces his own intent to return to his private chambers. A transition occurs as a hand reaches for the door, signaling the end of the day's long orientation. Now in a dark blue gown, Amelia worries about how to avoid offending the emperor's volatile and difficult moods.
She greets the head chamberlain and a new official with a polite bow in the palace corridor the next morning.
The chamberlain introduces Clavel Hines, who will educate Amelia on the empire's current status for the next few days.
Clavel notes the massive volume of documentation, expressing concern about finishing their work safely as a door creaks open.
The emperor arrives in the study, his firm footsteps echoing as the staff acknowledges his royal presence. Clayton moves toward his desk while Amelia and the officials stand ready to begin the day's business. The monocle-wearing official informs Amelia they will finish soon and instructs her to go prepare the tea. Amelia resolves to pour her soul into this first official task to ensure she prepares the perfect cup.
A teapot and 2 delicate cups sit ready on a tray atop a large and detailed territorial map.
The ash-blonde maid and the officials stand together in silence, awaiting the emperor's next command.
Clayton addresses Chief Administrator Clavel.
Clavel prepares to report the imperial status. He mentions significant changes over 5 years. Clayton sternly commands the official to start. Clavel stutters while searching for blue ink. Amelia efficiently provides the necessary inkset. She swiftly retrieves multiple files and books. Clayton begins reviewing the provided documents. Clavel stumbles over specific grain production figures. Amelia reaches for the requested brown coulter. She softly expresses her disagreement. Clayton declares that Amelia Valletta is wrong. Amelia wonders why he has corrected her. He firmly repeats that she is mistaken. Amelia hands a new folder to Clayton.
She asks him to clarify his point.
Clayton recalls the official's earlier clumsy behavior. He notes Clavel's poor public speaking skills. Clavel rambles through confusing economic terminology. Clayton tries to endure the long-winded report. He notices Amelia's perfect silent support. She quickly locates every document Clavel needs. Clayton sighs in deep internal frustration. He realizes Amelia prevents Clavel from fumbling. He jealously questions her interest in Clavel. Clayton recalls her promise to focus only on him. He feels betrayed by her professional focus. He demands a repeat of the previous report. Clayton insists on hearing the specific figures.
Clavel fumbles as Amelia moves to help.
Clayton laments that she ignores his charms. He views her divided attention as disloyalty. Amelia stands in silent, confused reflection. She asks the emperor to explain himself. Clayton asks for yearly grain tax records. Amelia indicates the document already in his hand.
She looks away with a stressed expression.
Clayton defensively asks if he is wrong.
Clayton commands the administrator to step back.
Amelia agrees to find the requested file. The monarch watches her walk away silently.
Amelia wonders why he seems so angry. She resolves to organize the paperwork better.
Clavel confirms the correct folder was found.
Amelia bows respectfully before her ruler.
Clavel praises the study's excellent organization. He continues explaining the notable tax rates. Clayton realizes he made a foolish mistake. He observes Amelia's graceful floral aura. He realizes she cleverly protected his pride.
Clayton observes his maid's unwavering discipline with a mix of awe and lingering frustration.
He admits that her stoic demeanor is surprisingly effective at getting under his skin.
His gaze lingers on her, deeply intrigued by her unflappable nature during their work.
As Amelia stands with a peaceful, angelic aura, Clayton suddenly barks aloud "no" to his startled official.
He shifts his focus to the map, pointing out specific regional discrepancies with a sudden, sharp tap.
While explaining the water shortage and tax issues, he wonders why Amelia refuses to give him any attention.
Clavel wipes sweat from his brow, baffled by why the Emperor is suddenly grilling him on local logistics.
Clayton remains fixated on the maid, once again irritated by her perpetually calm and professional expression. He points out a shared water source between two distant regions that should be producing better results.
With a firm slam of his hand on the desk, he explains the hidden regional conflict over dairy and water. He proposes a resolution to the resource dispute, delighting the official with the prospect of increased imperial profit.
The monarch explains his plan to mediate the water rights, causing the official to beam with admiration. Overwhelmed by the Emperor's insight, Clavel begins to weep with genuine pride and relief.
He sobs about the Emperor's past as a troublesome prince, while Clayton stands with a smug, knowing smile.
Amelia silently steps forward to offer the crying official a clean handkerchief, catching Clayton's dark, jealous eye.
A loud honk echoes as Clavel blows his nose, leaving the Emperor seething that he didn't receive the gift first.
Clayton looms over the terrified official with a shadow over his face, threatening to test his performance tomorrow.
Clavel notes the Emperor's intense glare toward Amelia and worries he has deeply offended his ruler.
The gray-haired man clears his throat with a nervous ahem, trying to break the heavy tension.
He cautiously brings up the maid's supposed mistake from earlier to see if that is the source of the anger.
Clayton snaps at the man, demanding to know if he saw how much focus the maid gave the official instead.
Despite his jealous outburst, he privately admits that her professional competence is undeniably impressive.
Clavel steals a glance at his ruler, certain that His Majesty is acting completely out of character.
Sensing the Emperor's volatile mood swings, the official resolves to keep the next day's training session very brief.
The golden-haired monarch stares ahead, lost in a brooding silence as the workday concludes.
Amelia bows deeply before her ruler, requesting forgiveness and promising to work harder to correct her shortcomings.
Clayton looks away as the head chamberlain praises his vast generosity and orders the administrator to depart. The heavy sound of footsteps fills the room as the staff files out, leaving the Emperor alone in his study.
He reflects on Amelia's conduct, wondering just how much more perfect she is intending to become.
The head chamberlain approaches with a polite smile, asking if His Majesty would like some refreshments brought in. Clayton refuses, noting that Amelia needs to rest after her first day before announcing his own departure.
Walking down the corridor, the chamberlain asks the Emperor for his honest assessment of the new maid's performance.
The monarch stops and answers firmly that she had no shortcomings whatsoever during her duties. He elaborates that her spirit is perhaps too strong for the capital, surprising the dark-haired chamberlain.
He notes that her ability to handle pressure is a rare advantage, even comparing her toughness to reattaching a neck.
Clayton pauses by the door, his eyes trailing back toward where his mysterious maid had been working.
The chamberlain tilts his head curiously, wondering what his ruler is thinking about in this quiet moment.
Clayton confirms she is full of virtues and countless good qualities, framed by a soft floral aura. He stands tall and regal in the quiet hallway, the light catching the gold of his ornate uniform.
An internal voice screams in exasperation that her perfection is exactly what makes her so incredibly annoying. The chamberlain walks away with a heavy sigh, finding the Emperor's intense mood shifts truly frightening to witness.
He begins to worry if the Emperor's cold treatment has actually driven Lady Amelia to tears.
He recalls the monarch's youth as a prince, when his mean-spirited pranks would inevitably make new maids scream or cry.
Memories of the Emperor's harsh glares during public ceremonies weigh heavily on the chamberlain's mind.
He arrives at a door and gives a quick, rhythmic knock, convinced that the Emperor finds Amelia a nuisance.
The door creaks open to reveal Amelia, who looks surprised to see the official visiting her so late.
The dark-haired man adjusts his monocle and asks if she has a moment to speak with him privately. With a polite smile and a graceful gesture, the ash-blonde maid invites the chamberlain into the room.
He notes her lack of arrogance and consistent politeness, realizing she is unlike the typical ambitious children of high-ranking families. He stares at her in quiet realization, wondering if this genuine humility is the merit the Emperor recognized. The ash-blonde maid reflects on how her own flawlessness might be the source of the Emperor's irritation. The head chamberlain sits with Amelia, questioning her on her successful first day under the ruler's gaze. The brown-haired official suppresses the terrifying history of past servants while offering Amelia hollow words of praise. Amelia remains polite and composed while thanking the official for his acknowledgement of her hard work. The official ponders if the cultural clash between the stoic north and expressive capital is bothering the emperor. Amelia asks if the monarch is actually angry as the chamberlain tries to soothe her nerves.
The head chamberlain quickly dismisses the idea of the emperor being genuinely furious with her. The ash-blonde woman accepts his unconvincing reassurance with a quiet and skeptical nod.
The monocle-wearing official addresses the maid once more to deepen their private conversation.
He asks if her obvious tension stems from the long-standing political friction between her family and the crown.
The official hesitantly tries to portray the unpredictable emperor as a broad-minded and forgiving ruler. He goes on to enthusiastically praise the emperor's sudden display of wisdom regarding the production reports. The official advises Amelia to use flowery praise and flattery to secure her position and show loyalty. He emphasizes that flattery is a necessary tool for maintaining a benevolent relationship with their ruler.
Amelia slams her hand down, sternly rejecting flattery as a professional failure and a dereliction of her duty. The head chamberlain is visibly shaken by her uncompromising and intense commitment to her professional principles.
She vows to prove her family's loyalty through unwavering excellence rather than empty words or emotional manipulation. The official realizes that the maid is just as stubborn and inflexible as the emperor himself. The brown-haired man prepares to conclude their meeting as the weight of her words sinks in. Amelia breaks her stoic mask with a radiant and rare smile while thanking him for his visit.
The head chamberlain is completely dazzled and blindsided by the maid's unexpected and charming display of warmth.
Overwhelmed and flustered, the official quickly takes his leave and retreats down the dark hallway. A new day begins as training resumes within the grand and sunlit imperial office. The emperor manages the empire's affairs while his staff stands by in a tense, silent formation.
The head chamberlain observes the heavy atmosphere of the room with a sense of growing concern.
Clayton continues to grill the chief administrator with an intensity that leaves the officials sweating in fear. Despite the explosive tension in the room, Amelia remains focused on her tasks with perfect discipline.
The official marvels at her incredible organizational skills and her refusal to cut any corners during her work.
He reflects on the unique nature of this maid compared to the countless others who failed before her. He notes with surprise that Amelia seems completely unfazed by the emperor's naturally intimidating presence.
The veteran official realizes the emperor is simply throwing a petty tantrum because he cannot rattle the maid. He resolves to bridge the gap of their mutual misunderstandings before their professional relationship collapses entirely.
He worries that his failure to intervene will lead to a diplomatic disaster involving the Northern Margrave. The desk remains cluttered with the complex documentation that keeps the empire running smoothly.
The official fears that reports of the capital's tension will cause Amelia's father unnecessary worry.
Clayton stops his work to offer Amelia a blunt but genuine compliment regarding her reliability.
The head chamberlain beams with pride, noting how quickly the maid has adjusted to her difficult role.
The golden-haired monarch admits that he has exceptionally high hopes for her future in his service.
The official rejoices at the positive review, emphasizing that harmony is essential for effective state management. Seizing the opportunity, the chamberlain fabricates a story about Amelia constantly singing the emperor's praises.
He continues his well-intentioned lie, claiming she was in total awe of the ruler's recent displays of wisdom. The emperor's sharp intuition immediately detects the lie, and he looms over the terrified official for the truth.
The official realizes his attempt at matchmaking has failed spectacularly as the emperor demands a real explanation.
He desperately tries to explain Northern Stoicism by comparing Amelia's quiet nature to that of his own wife.
He shares a humorous anecdote about his wife's silence even during childbirth to illustrate Northern communication styles.
The official explains that Amelia simply lacks the habit of expressing her heart through words like those in the capital.
The monarch pauses to reconsider the maid's distance, wondering if he has misunderstood her entire personality.
Clayton reflects on the possibility that her professional distance was never actually born out of personal dislike. The narrative highlights that Amelia is a woman of immense inner strength who cannot be easily swayed.
Clayton realizes she is far too discerning to blindly believe the malicious rumors spread by her own family.
Clayton wonders if it's possible the maid doesn't hate him as the head chamberlain calls to him.
The dark-haired official suggests helping her grow accustomed to his many virtues so she'll be moved by his strengths.
He continues that her expressions will naturally follow once those positive feelings build up over time.
Clayton stands by the window in a contemplative silence, his eyes fixed on the view outside. The monocle-wearing man expresses total confidence in his assessment of the situation between the ruler and the maid.
He laments that no one has recognized the emperor's charm before, advising generosity as the first step to clearing their misunderstanding.
The official tries to ease his ruler's mind by stating that Amelia simply needs more time to adjust.
He highlights how terrified she must be after traveling from the north alone, an assessment Clayton privately admits is true.
Narrative bubbles describe the vast differences in location, climate, and daily habits between the north and the capital.
Amelia stands alone in a quiet room, her posture straight and her expression unreadable.
Clayton reflects on how difficult it must have been for her to make that solitary journey for her family's sake.
The head chamberlain stresses that narrowing the emotional distance between them is the most important priority.
The golden-haired monarch worries that his own innate danger might make narrowing that gap an impossible task.
A childhood memory of the official surfaces as Clayton admits that adjusting to his new life is harder than expected.
Clayton concludes that young ladies are flustered by his overwhelming charm, leaving the chamberlain looking completely confused. The emperor gives a radiant smile and declares that all problems will be solved, while the official stares in disbelief.
Clayton decides that experiencing his resentment through all 5 senses is the perfect method for their professional relationship. The golden-haired ruler stares ahead with a sharp and focused intensity as his training session concludes.
Memories of a 5-year exile in the barren north haunt him, fueling a desperate desire to wipe them away forever.
Amelia looks down with a shadow over her face, resolving to never again be looked at with eyes full of contempt.
Clayton grabs the official's shoulders and praises his performance, causing the dark-haired man to look back in bewilderment.
The monarch flashes a brilliant, sparkling smile that leaves the head chamberlain sweating and stammering in shock.
Overwhelmed by this sudden display of warmth, the official stutters out that he is deeply honored by the praise.
He privately worries that something has gone terribly wrong with his plan to help the maid.
The final day of Chief Administrator Clavel's training begins at the grand and sunlit imperial office.
Amelia offers a polite morning greeting to her ruler as he enters the room with a firm step.
Clayton covers his face dramatically while greeting her, causing the maid to let out a rare, quiet giggle. The ash-blonde woman looks up in surprise as a brilliant and sparkling aura suddenly surrounds the emperor. Clayton strikes a pose against a backdrop of white flowers, enthusiastically declaring that the weather is lovely. Amelia agrees that the weather is lovely, though she appears visibly overwhelmed by his sudden and intense display of charm. Sensing the heavy atmosphere, she quickly excuses herself to prepare the tea while the monarch acknowledges her departure. Clayton gives a confident thumbs up while expressing his excitement for the tea, leaving the maid wondering what is happening. The sound of clinking porcelain fills the room as the maid expertly handles the tea service.
Amelia focuses on the tray, reflecting on how the emperor's intense and dazzling presence is making her incredibly uncomfortable.
She finds his persistent, radiant attention to be very unsettling as she continues her duties. As she pours the tea, she searches for the right word to describe the monarch's strange and overwhelming behavior. She concludes that he is flawlessly perfect, but the intensity of his charm feels almost inhuman to her. Amelia reflects on the difference between the capital's smiles and the harsh reality of northern life, defined by cold and monster waves. She recalls the stoic faces of northern warriors who never wore the expressive and flowery smiles common in the capital. The maid feels that his perfection is foreign and uncomfortable as the emperor looms over her with an expectant gaze. Clayton calls her a perfect person and asks if she will hand him the tea, causing her to stop in her tracks. He sips the tea and thanks her politely, while the ash-blonde woman watches him with a wary expression.
The monarch closes his eyes and takes a moment to thoughtfully evaluate the quality of the brew.
Amelia asks how the tea tastes, her hands held together as she waits for his royal assessment. Clayton lowers the cup and looks at her with a serious expression, offering only a cryptic and short response. The ash-blonde maid is caught off guard by how closely the emperor is leaning toward her with his radiant aura.
Clayton privately notes that the tea wasn't actually perfect, but he resolves to maintain his kindness nonetheless.
He strikes a confident pose while asking if she noticed his positivity, empathy, and perfect smile, expecting a compliment.
Amelia stares back at him with a flat, unimpressed expression that clearly indicates she is not amused.
The emperor's confident facade crumbles into a look of complete shock as the maid maintains her silent, deadpan stare.
Clayton wonders why she is ignoring him, while Amelia notes his smile is so perfect she finds it disappointing and wishes she could cover her eyes. The official dismisses her reaction, claiming her sense of beauty hasn't developed in the dreary north. As she serves the tea, Amelia thinks she feels slightly lightheaded.
She wonders if she could tell her ruler to shut his face.
The official calls out to his monarch as the ash-blonde woman stands with her tray. He reports that shipping costs are heavily influenced by seasonal price fluctuations.
Clayton acknowledges the economic report with a serious expression. The golden-haired ruler leans in close, causing the maid to reply with a startled affirmation. Surrounded by white flowers, Clayton poses radiantly and asks if they shall begin.
He focuses on training her to get used to his BB.
Clayton addresses his maid as she stares at him with a startled expression. He maintains his floral, posing aura while asking if they shall begin. He doubles down on his beauty training for his servant. Amelia responds with a long, heavy silence.
The maid's hands tremble as she wonders if his behavior indicates a medical issue.
Clayton looms over her with a perfect smile, leaving the woman unsure of where to look. The gray-haired official clears his throat to get their attention. He announces that today's lesson will cover a relatively light topic. He explains he will report major events that occurred while the monarch was away for 5 years.
Amelia is relieved she doesn't have to handle documents, but her unease remains.
She reflects that his perfect smile and sweet voice are simply way too much for one day.
The maid wishes he would shout about his hatred for her homeland so she could apologize.
The official describes a factional struggle between two great powers. Clayton observes that the woman is still avoiding his gaze during the briefing.
The golden-haired man is frustrated by how unyielding she is.
The gray-haired official recounts a southern love affair that turned into a territorial war.
He laughs while discussing the scandalous gossip of high society.
Clayton worries that if he ruins his social life over this story, Amelia Valletta will be to blame.
The ruler reflects on the nature of personal responsibility for one's own problems.
He considers that his natural charm and status were gifts he never had to work for. A lavish meal is served as he continues his introspection. He is bothered that despite his special effort, she is ignoring him entirely.
He finds her calm and beautiful face to be incredibly stubborn.
The ruler declares that he has finished reviewing all the prepared materials. The official asks for questions while Clayton internally demands to know how to make his maid smile. The emperor dismisses the session while the official looks back with a nervous grin. The gray-haired official takes his leave and exits the room.
Amelia stops the official to address him one last time.
Clayton watches with sharp intensity as his maid speaks to another man. Amelia offers the official a radiant smile while thanking him for an informative lesson.
The golden-haired ruler stands in a frozen state of utter disbelief.
He is wounded that she smiled at the official instead of his own perfect face.
He wonders where she is even looking if she can't see his charm.
He concludes that something must be fundamentally wrong with her sensory organs. Amelia calls out to her ruler as he stands in contemplative silence.
She asks him if there is something making him uncomfortable. The narrative highlights that time is the only thing she truly needs.
Clayton begins walking away with a firm and determined step. The ash-blonde maid watches him with a look of mild surprise.
The golden-haired monarch unsheaths his sword with a sharp, focused intensity.
Clayton wonders how his relationship with the maid would change if she were a man.
He notes her mental fortitude in resisting his charms and considers them worthy rivals.
The golden-haired ruler realizes such a change would fundamentally shift the story's genre.
Narrative text details the threat posed by the military aristocracy faction to his reign. He reflects on the strategic importance of winning over Amelia to bridge a gap with the North. Clayton privately admits that capturing her heart is also a matter of recovering his personal pride.
Resolved to take action, the monarch decides on a direct frontal assault to win her favor.
He recalls advice to use his natural strengths to help others adjust to his presence.
Amelia is startled to find herself in a completely new and unexpected part of the palace.
The pair arrives at the Grand Imperial Guard Knights training grounds where many soldiers are gathered.
Clayton misinterprets her reaction, thinking the wall around her heart is finally beginning to crumble. He playfully asks if she is afraid of the knights, but she calmly denies it.
The ash-blonde woman looks around the vast courtyard with an expression of pure bewilderment.
She points out the obvious fact that they are at a training ground instead of his office. Clayton wonders if she is troubled by being the only woman surrounded by male servants and soldiers. The emperor calls her name with a serious tone as he begins to step forward into the yard. He commands her to simply watch him and pay close attention to his upcoming performance.
The ruler summons the knight commander, who responds with a respectful and focused bow.
Clayton unsheaths his blade with a sharp motion and declares the beginning of a duel.
He resolves to win her over by showcasing his undeniable skill and physical power.
He cryptically tells her that he shall forgive her while maintaining his radiant floral aura.
Amelia blinks in silence, her expression one of complete and utter confusion at his behavior.
A visual representation of her internal state shows nothing but a giant, confusing question mark. She wonders what she could have possibly done that requires his royal forgiveness. Amelia reflects that she would gladly fix her behavior if he would only tell her directly.
The knights step forward with military discipline as their names are called by their ruler.
She notes the luxury and discipline of the guard, comparing their situation to the struggling North.
A sharp sound of metal clashing rings out as the battle between the emperor and a knight begins.
Clayton moves with blinding speed, his sword becoming a flurry of sharp and precise strikes.
A knight falls with a pained shout as the monarch completely dominates the opening match.
Amelia is genuinely astonished, noting that his physical skills are on a completely different level. Clayton calls for the next opponent while the remaining knights nervously plead for him to go easy. He turns back toward his maid, revealing a radiant and uncharacteristically joyful smile. The ash-blonde woman observes him closely, noting that he is smiling in a way she hasn't seen.
She realizes this is the first time he looks truly happy and fully immersed in his actions.
Surrounded by a floral aura, Amelia concludes that her ruler truly and deeply loves the sword. Another total victory is declared as the monarch stands tall and proud over his defeated subordinates. He takes a moment to breathe while the defeated, sweating knights look up at him in awe. Clayton suddenly pulls off his shirt, revealing a powerful and highly muscular build. He tosses his discarded jacket toward the startled maid, who catches it with a shocked look. Amelia watches with wide eyes as her ruler turns away to continue his training session. He walks toward the next knight with a focused and determined stride, his sword in hand. A loud shout rings out as another opponent is quickly and efficiently defeated by the Emperor. The monarch lunges forward with intense physical focus, his movements sharp and full of energy. Clayton privately gloats, thinking his current appearance is the absolute pinnacle of masculine perfection. He is certain that words like admiration and awe cannot fully contain his current image. He strikes a pose with his blade, expecting his incredible beauty to have finally captivated her. Amelia and the knights stare back at him with looks of blank, silent, and total confusion. The maid is actually distressed because she noticed some dirt has soiled his expensive royal clothes. Clayton is left in a state of shock, wondering if she failed to see his charm entirely. A brown-haired knight narrates that the Emperor visited the training grounds today while appearing to be in high spirits. The golden-haired monarch stands with a radiant smile, while the ash-blonde maid looks at him with a stunned expression. The shirtless ruler dominates a duel with ferocious speed, clearly performing with exaggerated movements to show off. Amelia unintentionally ignores his display while the knights watch the awkward scene with terrified and trembling expressions. The knights are in a panic, labeling her apathy as treason and wondering if she should be executed for it. The ash-blonde woman focuses entirely on cleaning the jacket her ruler discarded earlier during his training session. Amelia looks at the coat while the shirtless emperor stands before her in the training courtyard. The golden-haired man stands tall and proud while his maid bows her head respectfully while holding his garment. Clayton looks toward her with an expectant and intense gaze, waiting for a reaction to his display. Amelia maintains a calm and distant expression, keeping her eyes lowered and refusing to acknowledge his charm. The knights whisper frantically among themselves, certain that she is in grave trouble for her lack of response. The golden-haired ruler laughs heartily, realizing he used the wrong approach to try and impress her earlier. Relieved by their monarch's laughter, the knights join in with nervous and loud enthusiasm to ease the tension. The soldiers stare in awe at their ruler, praising his perfect swordsmanship, beauty, and magnanimous spirit. Clayton commands Amelia to return to the office, and she calmly accepts his order with a polite affirmation. The pair walks through a grand, sunlit palace hallway as they make their way back to work. Amelia's eyes show a hint of concern as she wonders if it is truly acceptable for him to be shirtless. She contemplates the proper etiquette of helping him dress, feeling conflicted because she is not a training ground servant. A steady and rhythmic sound of footsteps echoes through the corridor as they continue their silent walk. Clayton smirks to himself, confident that his plan to dazzle her has finally started to work. He reflects that her life will now be a struggle because no other man can satisfy her expectations. The golden-haired man calls her name with a serious tone as he stops in the hallway. Clayton resolves to be a cruel man by leaving her captivated and wanting more of his presence. Amelia stops her ruler and addresses him directly with a look of quiet resolve. The ash-blonde maid asks him to go to his bedchamber, causing the ruler's face to drop in shock. Clayton is stunned by what he perceives as a bold and unexpected request from his servant. Amelia explains he shouldn't attend his duties looking so embarrassing and offers to escort him so he won't be ashamed. The emperor is left completely speechless and confused, his mind racing with a startled exclamation. He reflects on the word bed, his thoughts coming to a jarring and shocked halt. The pair stands in silence as a wave of intense and awkward energy passes between them. Clayton looks away with a troubled expression, reflecting on the memory of the winter before last. He recalls the breath-stealing shock of a blizzard hitting his bare chest after an intense training session. Amelia stands with a neutral face while the word embarrassing echoes repeatedly in her ruler's mind like an insult. He remembers a flashback where multiple maids once attended to him and helped him dress in his finery. Another memory shows him looking grumpy while wearing a sleeping cap and being tucked into his bed. Clayton lies awake in the dark, unable to sleep as he wonders if he is truly the one feeling embarrassed.
A bright and cheerful morning sun shines over the grand towers of the imperial palace. Amelia greets her ruler with a pleasant smile and a warm greeting as she starts her day.
The golden-haired monarch is now fully dressed in his ornate regal uniform, looking as radiant as ever.
The maid is relieved that he looks peaceful today and goes to prepare the morning tea.
Clayton sits at his desk looking physically drained, privately admitting that he didn't sleep a single wink.
He anticipates the tea will be at the perfect temperature, reflecting the precision and excellence of his maid. Amelia serves the beverage with an unwavering temperament that Clayton finds both admirable and maddening.
The ruler confirms he needs nothing else while privately fuming that yesterday's incident ruined his enjoyment of the tea.
He focuses his gaze intensely on the memory of yesterday's training ground performance.
He reflects on how his intended gestures of kindness and reconciliation toward Amelia were completely ignored.
Clayton takes a slow sip of tea while his internal frustration at her lack of reaction continues to simmer.
He imagines an ordinary woman would be writhing in a mix of attraction and agony toward him in this situation.
The monarch concludes that her blatant disregard for his charms signifies that her hostility toward him is absolute. Clayton watches with irritation as she looks out the window with a maddeningly calm and unaffected expression. Clayton drinks his tea while noting her continued indifference.
The golden-haired monarch notes the hidden depths of her heart, resolving to unearth the truth and force both the maid and Margrave Fallard Valletta to bow as his loyal subjects.
Clayton declares this a battle of wills.
Amelia asks her ruler if there is a command he wishes to give.
The monarch denies having a command, but asks what caught her eye out the window.
The pair share a long, silent moment of eye contact.
The ash-blonde woman notes that compared to the north, the blue of the capital sky is far clearer and more pristine.
She reflects quietly on the sky of the north.
Clayton reflects on the dark, frozen blue hue of the northern sky, a sight he could never forget.
He tells her it is natural to cherish one's homeland, noting that the stars there shine brighter than anywhere else in the empire.
Amelia clarifies that she observes the sky only to check for frost or snow to protect crops and livestock, admitting she failed to notice the differences in color. Clayton concludes that her sensory perception must be duller than average for her to remain oblivious to the sky's delicate variations. A confident smirk grows on his face. Clayton decides that training is necessary. The two stand together against a vibrant floral background. The scene shifts to a grand fountain in the imperial garden where peacocks round.
Amelia is startled as her ruler leads her into the lush garden.
Clayton points out the colors of the peacock tail feathers and asks if she feels her aesthetic sensibilities awakening.
The ash-blonde woman stares at the feathers in quiet contemplation.
The ash-blonde woman praises the glossy sheen of the feathers and the excellent management of the keeper, much to her ruler's shock.
Clayton is dismayed that she speaks of animal husbandry instead of beauty, comparing her vision to that of a mole. He reflects that her ability to process visual information is terrible, yet he resolves to embrace her weaknesses with magnanimity and improve her through training.
Amelia assumes he really wanted to see the birds himself.
She smiles, relieved to see her ruler in such high spirits today. Clayton commands Amelia to sit beside him to avoid straining her neck.
He reaches out and pulls her down to the grass. Amelia apologizes while the golden-haired man notes that the birds are approaching.
The peacocks approach their master with a graceful and familiar air.
Amelia is suddenly swarmed by the birds and worries because she has no food to give them.
The maid laughs as the birds nuzzle her, while Clayton internally fumes at the ungrateful freeloaders who ignore him. He continues to rage against the ungrateful wretches. He rages that the birds are worthless scoundrels for ignoring their ruler and daring to touch his maid's cheek.
A brown-haired man offers to remove the birds, but Clayton commands him to step back since Amelia seems to be enjoying herself.
The ash-blonde woman tries to speak, but her ruler interrupts her. Clayton guesses she's looking for a gardener while reminding her they are in a unique location, while she reflects on the honor of her position. She looks down at the birds with a neutral gaze. He asks if his point is square. Amelia apologizes for her lack of foresight and offers to inform the head chamberlain, which the ruler graciously forgives.
The ash-blonde woman realizes with a blush that he sought her out because he finds it uncomfortable to be served by others.
She chides herself for being slow-witted and resolves to report the matter to the head chamberlain.
Clayton watches her with a satisfied expression.
He notes that she appears deeply lost in thought. A peaceful silence falls over the garden as they sit together. Clayton realizes this might be the first true break he has ever taken. A spread of tea and ornate sweets is revealed.
Amelia looks at the food with a stunned expression. Clayton points at the treats and commands her to eat. The ash-blonde woman is taken aback by the command.
Amelia concludes that her ruler wants her to act as a royal taster and poison detector, just like the elite forces of the North.
She eats a piece of cake while reflecting that her younger brother in the north would have loved it.
Amelia assures Clayton that the cake is safe to consume, causing him to respond with mild curiosity.
The golden-haired man questions the safety of the bright red strawberry on top, leading the maid to declare she will taste every item. As the sound of clinking cutlery fills the air, Clayton observes that his maid's sense of taste remains perfectly functional despite her lack of visual aesthetic sense. Amelia tries to redirect the attention of the curious birds toward their master, but the Emperor reveals that the treats are intended solely for her because he despises sweets. Clayton reflects that his primary goal was not testing for poison, but rather evaluating how his servant processes sensory information beyond sight. A luxurious multi-tiered stand displays an assortment of delicate macarons, cream-filled pastries, and fruit tarts. The golden-haired ruler contemplates whether her sense of taste is as underdeveloped as her vision, resolving to test the limits of her human senses. Clayton considers his plan a success, believing that the combination of a beautiful garden and sweets is a foolproof way to influence a woman. A faint blush colors the ash-blonde woman's cheeks as she enjoys the delicious pastry. The monarch is pleased to see that his tactical judgment regarding her preferences appears to be accurate. Clayton resolves to escalate his plan by having her experience the full range of the imperial head chef's superior culinary skills. Amelia speaks up to address the ruler while he watches her intently. The maid formally reports that the desserts are free of issues and invites the golden-haired man to begin his meal. Clayton rejects the generic invitation, commanding her instead to provide a detailed and precise description of every flavor she experienced. Amelia explains that she has never encountered cream with such a remarkably soft and rich texture before. Visuals of a berry tart and a cream roll accompany her description of the subtle cheese notes paired with fresh raspberries. The Emperor notes that while her voice remains calm and flat, the depth of her description proves she found the food exceptionally delicious. He concludes that this outing is a successful step in bridging the distance between them, though he intends to maintain a slow and measured approach. Clayton feels proud of his perceived magnanimity as Amelia asks if there are any further commands for her to fulfill. The ruler commands her to finish the remaining sweets to avoid waste, but she hesitates, citing imperial laws that forbid such familiarity between a monarch and a maid. Clayton questions if her rigid adherence to rules stems from the instructions of the palace's head chamberlain. An intense question hangs in the air regarding who she truly views as her ultimate authority within the palace. The Emperor is visibly irked as he asks if she values the chamberlain's word over the direct command of her ruler. Clayton privately gloats about his secret effort to select her favorite types of desserts for the picnic. He watches her with a satisfied look, wanting to ensure she experiences every luxury to prevent any future regrets. Amelia begins to feel uncomfortably full, realizing with concern that the golden-haired man has not eaten a single bite of the food himself. The ash-blonde woman is struck by the terrifying thought that this forced overeating might be a calculated form of punishment. She recalls the Emperor's past exile in the north, where he was despised by the public and faced constant threats to his life. A memory flashes of the golden-haired youth using his lethal swordsmanship to fend off multiple attackers from the Valletta family knights. Amelia reflects that the monarch would be justified in seeking vengeance against her family, suspecting he is only suppressing a bloodbath for political stability. Convinced her family's survival depends on her compliance, the maid decides that being tormented with excess cake is a price she must pay to appease him. With a look of grim determination, Amelia accepts a drink from her ruler, mentally vowing to endure the culinary ordeal to protect her lineage. Clayton notices the sudden increase in her eating speed and asks if she finds the food even more delicious than before. The ash-blonde woman confirms that the flavors are unlike anything she has ever tasted as the golden-haired ruler smiles in triumph. Clayton observes that the extensive spread of desserts he prepared is finally nearing its end. The Emperor smiles warmly at his maid as he suggests that it is time for them to return to the palace. Amelia reasons that if fulfilling his revenge through desserts improves his mood, then the discomfort of overeating is entirely worth the effort. She maintains a polite and serene expression while reflecting on her duty to her family. The grand facade of the imperial office stands prominently under the bright afternoon sun. Back inside the office, the pair finds a large, beribboned basket overflowing with colorful confections resting on a table. A close-up view reveals the basket is packed with lollipops, candy canes, and various pink and white sweets. Amelia stares in utter shock, her mind reeling at the sight of even more sugary treats after her struggle in the garden.
Clayton puts on a performance of annoyance, criticizing the staff for serving the Emperor simple candy when he had requested working snacks.
He casts a subtle glance toward his maid, mentioning that he recalled her fondness for sweets during their time in the garden. The golden-haired man commands her to take the entire basket of candy for herself. Sunlight pours through the high windows of the ornate office as the ruler bestows his unexpected gift upon the silent maid. Amelia bows respectfully and thanks him, stating her intention to share the vast amount of candy with her fellow maids. The Emperor's expression turns stern as he questions why she would ever consider giving his personal gift away to anyone else. Clayton leans down toward her, his gaze intense as he makes it clear that every single piece of candy is meant for her alone. Realizing she had committed a social blunder by suggesting she share an imperial gift, Amelia quickly corrects herself and offers her humble gratitude.
Clayton announces with a satisfied air that he has completed his official duties for the day.
Clayton dismisses Amelia for the evening. Palace staff gossip about Amelia's gift.
Amelia returns to her private chambers. She vows to bear the burden. Maids wonder about her royal gift. Amelia is lost in neutral thought. She questions how to handle sleets. Amelia feels overwhelmed by the scent.
She interprets the gift as revenge.
Amelia finds his mild revenge confusing. She questions his strange, tearful expression. Clayton's violent northern reputation is recalled. Visualizing the Emperor's bloody, arrogant past, Amelia finds his current behavior cute.
She anticipates Raglan's likely shocked reaction. The head chamberlain arrives with concern.
Amelia's awkward reaction confuses her visitor. He recognizes the gift's romantic significance.
Amelia claims it was a misunderstanding.
The chamberlain accepts her simple explanation. He asks if she's ill.
Amelia prepares to share her worries. She asks how to earn recognition.
Amelia denies that anything unusual happened.
The chamberlain wonders about the Emperor. She struggles to read his wishes. He questions her theory of torment. The chamberlain probes for more details. Amelia shares Clayton's confusing responsibility claim.
She admits she was too intimidated.
The chamberlain considers the Emperor's motives. He believes the Emperor accepted her. Amelia challenges his optimistic interpretation. She recalls the Emperor's happy expression, a memory of Clayton's satisfied smirk. The head chamberlain is utterly baffled.
He struggles to reconcile their perspectives.
The chamberlain finds her logic impossible.
He explains recognition is hard-won.
Amelia wonders if she acted prematurely. Memories of northern monster hunts resurface. Her father's rigorous training is recalled. Amelia treats the sweets like kama. The chamberlain offers gentle, hollow encouragement.
Amelia politely accepts his supportive words.
He reflects on his long career. He acknowledges the danger of Clayton's side.
He tells her to enjoy snacks.
Amelia admits she now dislikes sweets.
Night falls over the quiet palace.
A soft flutter of pages fills the room as a hand opens the ornate purple book.
Clayton sits in his personal robe reflecting on the candy he gave his maid while the head chamberlain watches from behind.
The head chamberlain considers if he should retire, shocked to see the golden-haired emperor actually attending to state affairs during his private hours, wondering if the man has finally developed a sense of royal responsibility.
The monarch remains absorbed in his reading while his servant contemplates if he is witnessing the rise of a truly great ruler.
The head chamberlain turns with a sharp, quick movement as Clayton questions the reason for his sudden visit, prompting him to report on matters concerning the maid. He speaks in a low, rhythmic whisper as he explains that Amelia will begin her duties as an exclusive maid tomorrow, serving in the office, gardens, and even the royal bedchamber, a detail that catches the Emperor by surprise. The chamberlain clarifies that such proximity is the standard for an exclusive maid, leading the golden-haired man to worry privately about when the ash-blonde woman will ever find time to rest. Clayton gives a sharp, piercing glare when the chamberlain suggests leaving bedchamber duties to another staff member, Madame Galliere, suspiciously asking if that proposal was the true purpose of his visit. He stands up with a sudden, energetic start while the chamberlain explains he is merely trying to save a colleague's job and prevent Amelia's imminent collapse from overwork, though Clayton notes the maid already looks quite exhausted. An intense, burning energy radiates from the monarch as he recalls seeing her resting without dinner, bothered by the fact that she did not even touch the candies he provided.
The monocled man gives a subtle, knowing wink as he dismisses the candy issue as a simple mistake by the kitchen staff.
Clayton lets out a long, weary sigh, dismissing the idea of exhaustion by claiming the maid is simply a childish person who likely lost her appetite after gorging herself on sweets.
A split visual captures the deep misunderstanding between the pair, as Amelia realizes she now dislikes sweets while Clayton is certain she is obsessed with them, leaving the head chamberlain caught in a state of total confusion. He lets out a soft, confident chuckle, asking the chamberlain if anyone in the entire empire could possibly dislike the handmade confections created by the royal head chef. The chamberlain clears his throat with a dry, awkward cough as he decides to test the emperor's reaction with a strategic lie. He claims his wife, being a northerner, finds pure sweetness to be quite unpleasant, hoping to gauge if Clayton connects this trait to his northern-born maid. The chamberlain privately acknowledges that the loyal ash-blonde woman would likely claim even a crunchy worm was delicious if it was for the sake of her ruler. He reflects on her status as a loyal member of the Valletta family, questioning if her family background was the primary reason she was appointed as an office maid.
The golden-haired man demands a clearer explanation of what the Chamberlain is implying about his selection of staff.
His heart gives a sudden, heavy thump as the Chamberlain suggests that the Emperor likely keeps Amelia close because he highly values the legendary patience characteristic of Northerners. The head Chamberlain directly suggests that the monarch's true intention is to seek vengeance against the Margrave of the Valletta family. A dark, heavy pressure fills the office as Clayton asserts he is merely rewarding hard work for the Empire, sternly asking if there is a problem with his method of governance.
The head Chamberlain turns away with a swift, fluid motion after bowing respectfully, as the Emperor dismisses him for the remainder of the evening.
As he leaves, the Chamberlain reflects that while the ruler's tone was exceptionally harsh, his true feelings regarding the Valletta family remain a total mystery.
Heavy footsteps echo against the floor as the golden-haired man stands by the window, and the heavy door closes with a long, slow creak.
The heavy door opens with a long, slow creak as the scene shifts to the Imperial office on the following day.
Amelia stands at a distance as a gray-haired official informs the Emperor that sealing the cave near the Valletta territory is currently impossible.
The administrator explains that construction cannot proceed because the bridge leading to the site has suddenly collapsed.
A dark vision of a monstrous beast serves as a reminder that the Emperor had specifically ordered the cave closed due to a recent demonic wave. Clayton questions the logic of a bridge that was perfectly functional yesterday suddenly collapsing today.
The official's heart gives a sharp, painful jolt as the golden-haired ruler demands to know if the chief administrator honestly believes his excuse makes any sense.
The official breaks into a nervous, cold sweat while the ash-blonde maid watches from the side, concluding that the Emperor is deliberately tormenting the staff over the territory dispute.
Amelia reflects that it is somewhat embarrassing to admit, but she feels she and the struggling nobles are now in the same difficult position. The chibi version of the maid breathes a heavy sigh of relief at her relative safety.
An announcement is made that Marquis Malloy's Rune is requesting an immediate audience with the Emperor. Clayton and Amelia both look surprised as the golden-haired man wonders what the Marquis could possibly be doing at the office.
She steals a quick, sidelong glance as the monarch commands the visitor to be let in immediately.
A bright, shimmering aura surrounds the Emperor as he finds the Marquis' arrival interesting, suspecting the man witnessed his earlier clash with the military nobles. A vision of knights and gold coins highlights the military nobles as a powerful alliance that called for Clayton's execution during his exile and remain his bitter enemies. Heavy footsteps echo against the floor as the narrator notes that Malloy's Rune is the eldest son who inherited the title, making his factional loyalty difficult to categorize.
A firm shoe steps forward decisively on the ornate rug.
The brown-haired Marquis Rune enters the room and offers a formal greeting to his ruler. The young Marquis Rune stands tall, identified as a prominent member of the military noble families. Amelia steals a quick sidelong glance at the newcomer, wondering what he truly intends to achieve by coming to the office after the morning's dispute. The scene shifts to the events that transpired during the morning state council meeting.
A sudden booming sound rings out as Clayton commands the council to seal off the caves near the northern Valletta territory following the beast wave, causing a restless murmur among the nobles.
Duke Brondel, the head of the military nobles, argues that construction is impossible because the bridge at Holleton has collapsed.
The room fills with a low, restless murmur as Malloy's Rune watches the Duke, suspecting the older man is scheming to defy the Emperor's direct orders. A bright, shimmering aura surrounds the monarch as he calls the situation unfortunate, yet commands the nobles to repair the bridge and seal the cave as a gift for his coronation.
Clayton smirks as he tells the gray-haired official that the gift provided was not the one he desired. The brown-haired Count Dallas attempts to delay the awkward discussion while the flustered official stands by. The Emperor maintains a silent, knowing smirk.
Count Dallas is convinced the monarch has gone completely mad despite his brilliant past. He reflects that the 24-year-old ruler possesses the mental age of a 4-year-old.
Marquis Rune wonders if the ash-blonde maid's presence is a calculated political statement. He offers a formal greeting while adjusting his attire with a sharp, crisp motion.
Clayton dismisses the Marquis to wait on a nearby sofa. He commands Chief Administrator Clennell to finish the report regarding the bridge and the woodlands. Clennell nervously reports on the timber quality of the Hessebron woodlands offered by Duke Brondel.
Clayton uses forced logic to argue that taking back land originally bestowed by the former emperor is not a gift. He asserts that repairing the bridge and sealing the cave are simple requirements for his enthronement. Marquis Rune is startled when the golden-haired man addresses him as Malroyce and asks for his opinion.
Clayton stands up and asks if Clennell has more urgent matters to attend to.
The administrator presents the construction estimates while noting the seasonal variations in transportation costs.
An intense pressure radiates from Clayton as he questions how top-secret construction details are leaking to the public.
Clennell is paralyzed by fear as the Emperor notes the entire town seems to know the details. Clayton announces he is sending the Imperial Guard to the administrative office to conduct a thorough investigation.
He issues a final warning about security as a dizzy Clenel feels as though stars are falling. Marquise Rune watches with a subtle smirk as the Emperor tells his staff to work harder.
A system error notification appears as Clenel suffers a sudden, painful eye spasm.
Clayton dismisses the flustered official after he vows to keep the office solely for the monarch's use.
Amelia observes the departing Marquis and concludes he is likely suffering from a magnesium deficiency. The golden-haired man commands his ash-blonde maid to serve tea to their visitor.
Marquise Rune finds the silence suffocating and admires the handmaid's calm attitude in such a tense environment.
He assumes a maid from the north would be entirely ignorant of complex state affairs.
Clayton bluntly suggests the Marquis did not come just to stare at the maid's backside. A dark, heavy pressure fills the room as Marquis Rune reacts with total shock to the crude remark.
He is baffled by the Emperor's unpredictable nature, unsure if the man is being serious or simply teasing.
The Marquis pulls himself together, acknowledging the formidable power of the man before him. Legends of scandals, swordsmanship, and the slaying of a divine beast surround Emperor Clayton.
He reflects on the conflicting memories left behind from Clayton's years as Crown Prince.
A bloody vision of the young prince standing over his fallen enemies. Rune admits he once shared the belief that Clayton's solo victory over demonic beasts was a ridiculous exaggeration. He recalls how the military nobles suspected the Margrave of the Valletta family of being a secret ally. Despite his doubts, Rune highly valued the fact that the abandoned royals stepped forward to protect the empire. He finds it difficult to reconcile that legendary figure with the petty and childish man sitting across from him. The office environment is described as a scene of absolute destruction.
Marquise Rune deeply regrets gambling his family's future on a man with a 4-year-old's temperament.
Clayton calmly reviews the construction estimates for sealing the Eastern Palace. The brown-haired man asks if the rumors were spread deliberately to pressure the nobles before the meeting ended. The monarch smiles, having clearly seized the political initiative against his rivals.
Marquise Rune warns that only a few administrators will remain tomorrow, while Clayton notes his own staff is small.
Clayton asserts that Amelia is more than worthy to stand with the Marquis due to her Valletta lineage.
Rune mentions the controversy surrounding the removal of attendants from all the influential families.
The golden-haired man dismisses the backlash, claiming the nobles simply deserve to be removed.
Marquise Rune argues that keeping those attendants was essential for maintaining harmony with the nobility. Clayton abruptly ends the debate, stating that Amelia alone is enough for him.
He stares intensely at the stunned Marquis while repeating that no other attendants are necessary.
Marquise Rune is left questioning if entrustment to this unpredictable man was a grave mistake. A credit page acknowledges the translation team. The golden-haired emperor and his ash-blonde maid stand together in a stark, dramatic spotlight.
Amelia senses an intense pressure, reflecting that this very spot is the heart of a political battlefield.
Memories of her father resurface as he warns that the palace is devoid of friends and she must avoid its turmoil.
He commands her to live as a silent shadow and return home while he guards their fortress.
The ash-blonde maid stares ahead with a stoic, unwavering expression.
The atmosphere in the Grand Office is described as a literal hell on earth for those caught in the tension.
Amelia steels her resolve, mentally repeating that she must remember her father's stern advice.
A gulp of nervous anticipation is felt as she prepares for the next move in this dangerous game.
Marquise Rune maintains a stiff, formal posture as he faces the unpredictable ruler.
Clayton demands to know the Marquis' true purpose, warning that the business must be worth the high-quality tea provided.
Rune observes the Emperor's protectiveness over the maid, fearing a potential purge of the other noble aides.
The Marquis explains that his family gifted rare Lugus pearls for the enthronement, incurring a massive 3-year debt.
Clayton mockingly repeats the name of the pearls before expressing a sudden realization.
The golden-haired ruler scoffs at the gift, calling the small box a meager attempt to curry favor, while Rune groans in frustration.
Clayton asks if Rune is simply afraid of being squeezed for more, but the Marquis proposes a formal political reconciliation.
The monarch questions the strategic value of House Rune, noting their territory is too far east to assist in immediate conflicts.
Clayton challenges the visitor to prove he is actually worth the tea while Rune feels his energy being drained away.
A cold sweat breaks out as the Marquis wonders how any servant could possibly endure such a man.
Amelia's presence looms over Rune with an intensity he compares to a vulture watching a corpse. While Rune suspects the maid is far from ordinary, Amelia privately worries that the Marquis is nearing a nervous breakdown.
The brown-haired man asks if his ruler is always this reckless. Clayton offers a playful wink, teasing that he might be reckless or he might not.
Rune reflects on the rumors that the Emperor is a heartbreaker, though he feels his own sanity slipping for different reasons.
He admits that if his resources are useless, then he has failed to satisfy his sovereign. Rune pales and asks for permission to leave, but Clayton flatly denies the request, leaving the Marquis baffled.
The monarch turns his attention to Amelia, abruptly telling her to cover her ears for a moment.
Amelia offers to step out if the matter is sensitive, but Clayton demands she stay exactly where she is.
He instructs her to plug her ears and make a loud noise so she cannot hear their upcoming conversation.
Recalling her duty to live as a shadow, Amelia decides that following this strange whim is simple enough. She determines that since this is her chosen battlefield, she cannot afford to retreat. Clayton turns away as the ash-blonde maid prepares to follow the bizarre command.
Her white shoe steps forward decisively on the ornate floor.
Amelia lets out a continuous, loud wail of "Ah!" with her hands firmly over her ears.
A stunned Marquis Rune is left speechless by the absurd scene as Clayton addresses him.
In the midst of the noise, the Emperor asks Rune for his honest opinion regarding Margrave Valere.
Rune reflects that it is so absurd he cannot even be angry, noting the Margrave is essential for the Empire's survival. The golden-haired man remains seated, waiting for the Marquis to elaborate on the northern defense.
Clayton stares silently at the singing maid, making Rune wonder why he is being ignored.
The Marquis realizes that despite the childish prank, the Emperor's eyes are filled with an intense, frightening seriousness. A realization dawns on Rune that the monarch wasn't ignoring him, but was genuinely captivated by the melody of the maid's voice. The scene shifts as the song evokes a serene, ethereal vision of the northern landscapes.
Vibrant greenery and white flowers surround the singing maid as she remains lost in the performance. Clayton smiles and asks if the song is beautiful, accepting the Marcus agreement as the only correct answer.
The monarch reveals he already has evidence that Duke Brondel did not destroy the bridge, then dismisses Rune to listen as the song. He issues a final chilling warning that if any part of this meeting leaks, the Imperial Guard will find the culprit.
Rune stands up quickly, acknowledging the order with a forced, respectful tone. Heavy footsteps echo as the Marquis walks toward the door, feeling completely overwhelmed.
He laments to the memory of his late father that he was never warned the Crown Prince was a total lunatic.
Seeing that the visitor has finally departed, Amelia wonders if she should finally stop her vocal performance.
Clayton recalls the song the Ash-Blonde Maid famously sang first during northern festivals.
He explains that local pubs are filled with such rumors before summoning Amelia closer. The Ash-Blonde Maid reacts with a sudden, wide-eyed look of surprise.
A close-up reveals a luxurious red box adorned with a massive pink gemstone.
Clayton presents the ornate container and commands his maid to open it.
He reveals a high-quality handkerchief, intending to replace the one stolen by an official.
The monarch insists she use this one and discard the old, contaminated version. He frames the expensive gift as simple compensation for her lost work supplies.
A tense silence settles as they stand in close proximity to one another. Clayton challenges the maid, asking if she dares to doubt his regal judgment.
Amelia formally agrees while privately noting how uncomfortably close the Emperor's face is.
The golden-haired man encourages her to find the gift useful and express her gratitude. A strange, crackling energy surrounds the maid as she holds the precious item.
A focused close-up captures the intensity and shock within Amelia's wide eyes.
She offers a deep, formal bow while accepting the monarch's gift with gratitude.
Clayton looks down at her skeptically, questioning the true sincerity of her words.
Amelia is bewildered, wondering if social gratitude follows different rules in the capital.
The Emperor internally worries if the luxury item failed to resonate with her properly.
Amelia feels the incredibly soft fabric and decides to send it to her brother.
She reflects on her duty to provide for her family back in the north.
A narrative bubble acknowledges that the monarch is being unexpectedly thoughtful.
The Ash-Blonde Maid offers a genuine smile while repeating her thanks to Clayton. Claiming exhaustion from political squabbles, Clayton abruptly dismisses his maid for the night.
Narrative text formally presents the maid's full name, Amelia Valletta.
Alone in his office, Clayton slams his desk in a fit of personal frustration. A portrait-like frame captures the maid's gentle and unassuming smile.
The golden-haired man admits to himself that her smiling face was actually quite cute.
He covers his mouth in silent contemplation, appearing slightly flustered by his own thoughts.
A bright, clear morning rises over the sprawling and majestic Imperial Palace grounds. Amelia stands stoically by as the Emperor focuses on a large, ornate book.
A group of high-ranking nobles gathers around a table for a formal audience.
They have arrived to discuss the controversial cave construction project from the previous day.
Amelia observes the visitors, suspecting they intend to exert political pressure on the monarch.
Clayton remains seated at his desk, seemingly indifferent to the gathered nobles' presence. The maid senses a silent and intense battle of wills unfolding in the room.
Clayton slams his hand down, demanding everyone's absolute and immediate attention.
He singles out the Lord of Holton, questioning the status of the bridge construction. Count Lorigard, the military noble second in command, reacts with a startled and nervous expression.
The discussion shifts to the mysterious destruction of the bridge within the Holton territory.
Historical context explains the complex political rivalry and uneasy alliance between the noble families. Despite their constant mutual checking, the families always unite for their common interests. The nobles claim their visit is specifically intended to address that very construction issue.
Clayton offers a sharp, knowing smile while granting the visitors permission to speak.
He issues a chilling ultimatum, warning that he only wants to hear the correct answer.
Amelia is stunned by his blatant display of disrespect towards such high-ranking noblemen.
Narrative text confirms the monarch is determined to break the spirit of his rivals.
A noble argues that since magic beast origins are unknown, the cave is worthless.
Clayton scoffs, mocking the noble for treating him like an ignorant and inexperienced ruler. He asserts that his decisive actions are the only reason they aren't currently at war.
The Emperor's sharp and aggressive logic leaves the gathered nobles completely speechless.
Amelia reflects that while the nobles dismiss the cave's value, the Emperor is actually the foremost expert on magic beasts.
She concludes without a doubt that His Majesty possesses unparalleled knowledge regarding magic beast waves.
Clayton hums to himself with a smug smile while the ash-blonde maid continues her silent observations.
Historical narration notes that Clayton earned his reputation by emerging victorious against waves of magic beasts.
He didn't just defeat a single creature, he single-handedly repelled an entire onslaught.
These incredible feats were accomplished back when he served as the Empire's crown prince.
As a native of the North, Amelia still vividly recalls the chilling legends of his combat prowess.
The memory of a woman standing in a snowstorm evokes the harsh reality of those past battles.
A haunting close-up of an eye reveals the lingering intensity of the northern conflicts.
In the memory, a knight frantically reports that a wave-class demonic beast has appeared on the mountain.
The knight is visibly shaken by the terrifying scale of the approaching monster swarm.
Young Prince Clayton appeared suddenly and suppressed the entire beast wave in an instant.
A surviving witness claimed that such a magnificent spectacle would never be seen again in their lifetime. It is also famously noted that he arrogantly refused the prestigious title of Swordmaster.
Clayton sat lazily and questioned if such a trivial title could possibly improve his already perfect swordsmanship.
His refusal was a bold declaration that he had already transcended the absolute peak of martial arts.
Back in the present, a nobleman is left in a state of utter shock by the Emperor's dismissive attitude.
Clayton offers a sharp, confident smirk as he basks in his clear dominance over the room.
Narrative text explains that the Empire's standard defense relied on the Margrave and various warlord nobles.
This strategy was ultimately flawed as it merely drove the beasts away instead of eliminating them. Warlord nobles were allowed massive armies for defense, but they failed to provide true security.
The gray-haired duke laughs mockingly at the Emperor's mention of his royal subjects.
Clayton stares coldly at the laughing man, asking if he believes only commoners were saved. He sarcastically reminds the nobles that he saved them as well so they could keep their comfortable lives.
The tension in the room peaks as someone sharply calls out Marquis Rune's name.
Marquis Rune argues that sealing the cave would allow the Empire to focus its defensive efforts more effectively.
Clayton wonders why the other dukes are incapable of understanding the situation as clearly as Rune does.
Amelia worries the elders will collapse from high blood pressure as the Emperor abruptly postpones the meeting.
A collective sigh of relief follows as the nobles finally depart and the heavy atmosphere lifts.
Rune observes that Clayton's expression mirrored the former emperor's, but Clayton dismisses the comparison as nonsense.
The golden-haired man insists it is impossible to compare them, leaving a bewildered Rune to call him crazy.
While Amelia remains stoically calm, the brown-haired Marquis struggles to regain his composure.
Rune warns that the monarch provoked the nobles too much by attacking their professional pride. Clayton scoffs at the advice, asserting that he did the work himself and will eat whatever he wants.
The Emperor asks why his visitor is still lingering, while Rune feels his presence is being ignored.
Clayton vents his frustration about how the nobles only care about following their own selfish whims.
In a comedic moment, Clayton realizes that Amelia fled the room faster than a demonic beast. Rune predicts that at the next council, the nobles will use the bridge construction to stall for time.
Clayton suspects they will demand a total reorganization of transport facilities to delay progress. The realization that the nobles are intentionally stalling leaves Rune in a state of nervous exhaustion. The Marquis laments that even the former emperor was willing to listen to their advice occasionally. Clayton gleefully points out that those advisors were his father's friends, not his own. Noting his dry throat, the golden-haired ruler asks where Amelia has gone.
The door closes with a sudden, sharp bang, sounding as Clayton is left alone with his thoughts.
He calculates that the nobles' stalling tactics could delay the project for at least 5 years. Clayton compares the old nobles to snakes who use stingy tactics just to avoid paying for one bridge. His thirst grows more intense as he realizes that his maid is still not returning to her post. Sparking with indignation, the Emperor wonders how his servant dares to make him wait. A male servant peeks into the office to check on his master but is quickly dismissed. Clayton commands the staff to clear everything away and prepare only a simple meal. The golden-haired man ponders in heavy silence.
Clayton wonders where the maid has wandered off to.
He reflects on the maid's uncharacteristically idle behavior.
He dismisses the idea of her eating elsewhere.
The Emperor continues to wonder about her location.
A realization dawns as he struggles to censor.
Recalling her face, the golden-haired man looks flustered. Clayton admits to knowing almost nothing about her.
He compares her unpredictable nature to demonic beasts.
Narrative text emphasizes the tension of her unpredictable nature. Clayton questions how she dares make him wait. A sudden pop sounds as he blames hallucinations on dehydration.
He stays thirsty to ensure he is justifiably angry upon her return.
A slow creak sounds as the door finally begins opening.
Amelia returns with tea and addresses the Emperor formally.
The ash blonde maid offers a polite apology for her galai.